an extraordinary title, typical of the 18th century more than anything. It's just called Tintern Abbey in the critical tradition. We don't bother with the long extended title here, but again, in the period, this is not unusual, and probably helpful here, because it's called a loco-descriptive poem, and it is written in a particular location. Now, the location is pretty obvious, because it tells us exactly. They are lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey, and we even get the timeline. On revisiting the banks of the Wye during a tour, July 13th, 1798. The Lyrical Ballads come out in 1798. Now, I mentioned to you that the great political event of the day happens in 1789, the French Revolution. This is 9 years later. In England, on the border with Wales, actually, so in the southwestern side of England, the Wye Valley there. And it is composed above Tintern Abbey, so it's up in the hills. Let me show you a picture of Tintern Abbey if I can find it. So there's Tintern Abbey, and here you get a sense that the landscape is rather hilly. It's not a very good shot of that. Oh, I don't want 10 free images now. But it's written above that, so he's perhaps up in the hills, and he's looking down on the abbey then. And it's not the first time he's been there. I'll say that as well. What you will notice about the abbey is that it is a ruin. Abbeys are places where monks would live a monastic life. There was a life there in which you were secluded from society, and the monks would harvest or have cattle or sheep or whatever, and the community was an insulated one, usually dedicated to the preservation of learning or the advancement of social justice in certain ways, so feeding the poor and so forth. These were a legacy of Christianity in Britain connected with the Roman Catholic Church. When King Henry VIII announced that he was the head of the Church of England thereafter, one of the things that he did immediately is he seized the land of the abbeys. Said, "This is my land now." And most of the communities that were there just went away, and the monasteries effectively not only went obsolete, but they were left to ruin. And you will see these dotted around the landscape in Britain to this day. There are ruined abbeys like this. In Europe as well, more broadly speaking, but I've certainly seen several in England. So that particular feature of the abbey is also important, because what it illustrates, when I say it, the abbey illustrates, well, what do you see about the abbey? The fact that it's a ruin I've already mentioned. What else impresses you? What's the aesthetic effect of an abbey that is ruined like this? What might you associate it with? Well, it's got a funny old carpet there. It's called grass. It's nature. Where's the roof of the abbey? And the glass? It's gone. How did it go? Where did it go? What has had the effect? Like, this is an extraordinary piece of stonework. It's been standing for centuries, but it's not standing intact. It's standing in a ruin. What has ruined it?
Weather and time?
Yes. Weather, nature. The natural forces of wind and water have eroded it. So you'll find that these are often made of limestone as well, and you'll see that even the stone itself has been hollowed out by the wind and the water, so it has a certain weather-beaten effect. And it's not just the stone. Remember, the abbey itself is a symbol of civilization. It would take many decades to build an abbey. In some cases, some cathedrals in Britain took centuries to build. So the person who started building it would not see it to its completion. It would take generations of builders to complete the work. It's a monument to a certain community's ideal of culture. And it took that long to build it. But now it is a monument as well to something different. Not a commitment to God by a human community, but the effect of a power greater than human community, namely that of nature, because it's brought it to ruin. So it's a power, and it's a power greater than civilization itself, nature itself. The experience of this, by the way, is called the sublime. That's the term that is used. The sublime is a very different effect than the beautiful. So these two terms are used in the 18th century. This is an example of a sublime landscape. A ruin is a perfect example, an illustration of sublimity, because it suggests a power greater than what you can see with your eye. It suggests it. You will find the same effect in a mountain landscape where the mountain goes up so high that the peak loses itself in the clouds. Or when you go to an ocean and you look out over the horizon and you see nothing on it, it goes on into infinity seemingly. That's also a sublime landscape. Or when you go to an Arctic region and it's all ice and nothing but ice, unbroken. Or when you go to the prairies and it's just flat forever and there's nothing to interrupt or stop your eye from seeing the limitlessness. That sense of infinity creates a sublime experience. And it furthermore creates a sense of awe in the viewer. Awe at a power grander than we. We finite beings are experiencing the infinite. And it creates a sense of fear in us at the power that can destroy civilizations and bring it down to nothing. Whereas the beauty